Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about adaptive art, more or less from an occupational therapy perspective. And my name is Stephanie Mort. So, a couple of objectives for this PowerPoint, real quick. We're going to talk about occupational therapy, what it is, and how it can help. Modifications, so just ideas for modifying typical art projects. Adaptive devices, which is equipment that can be used to compensate for motor deficits. A couple of specific ideas, so just some examples of art activities that you can do with those assistive devices, and some practice, so just some time to play around with some of the adaptive equipment. So about me, I obtained my Associate's of Science degree in Occupational Therapy from St. Charles Community College in 2010, and I've been practicing as an occupational therapy assistant for Francis Howe School District ever since then, so for 14 years. I'm currently going back to school to obtain my master's degree at Muskingum University in Ohio so that I can be an occupational therapist. My role in the district, I support occupational therapists and students in addressing goals related to academic success. I'm currently working at Henderson, Cosley, and Becky David this year, but I do have experience working at all of the high schools, Sager and Hollenbeck middle schools, Warren, John Weldon, Independence, and Central Elementary Schools, and all three of the early childhood centers. Some of my special interests are advocacy via, this PowerPoint, inclusion, collaboration, and assistive technology. So first we're going to talk just a little bit about occupational therapy. Since I love advocacy so much, I have to spend a little bit of time advocating for my profession. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what OT is and how we would love to be an active resource for you guys. So the simple definition of OT is that it's a client-centered health profession that helps people of all ages participate in the things that they need and want to do to promote health, well-being, and overall quality of life. So interestingly enough, art and occupational therapy have actually gone hand in hand for years. The arts and craft movement, which began in the late 19th century in response to the Industrial Revolution, emphasized the importance of hand craftsmanship, creativity, and connecting people with their work as a way to enhance mental and physical well-being. This perspective aligns with occupational therapy's core principle of helping individuals find purpose and meaning through engagement in everyday tasks, so which includes creative and productive activities. In the early 20th century, the founders of occupational therapy saw the value of engaging patients in arts and crafts as a form of therapy. So crafts like weaving, pottery, and woodworking promoted by the arts and crafts movement became fundamental activities in occupational therapy practice. At the time, occupational therapists were primarily working with individuals with mental health conditions, such as in institutions and asylums, who had historically been living in conditions in which they were pretty separated from normal activities of daily living. They also worked with wounded soldiers from World War I who were suffering from physical injuries, amputations, and emotional trauma. Patients with physical disabilities, such as those with polio, arthritis, or spinal injuries, individuals who suffered workplace injuries or industrial accidents, children with physical and cognitive disabilities, and older adults in nursing homes or long-term care facilities. So early occupational therapists observed that engaging in arts and crafts helped mental health patients reduce anxiety, express emotions, and feel a sense of accomplishment. Crafts like the weaving and pottery and woodworking were used to provide structure, instill routine, and encourage social interaction, which are key aspects for managing conditions like depression, schizophrenia, and anxiety. Arts and crafts help soldiers regain motor skills, strength, and coordination while also providing an emotional outlet for processing trauma. Engaging in crafts was seen as a therapeutic way to restore a sense of normal and purpose and productivity, aiding in physical and psychological recovery. Individuals with physical disabilities and chronic illness benefited from arts and crafts as they rebuilt strength, flexibility, and coordination in a very therapeutic but enjoyable way. Arts and crafts also helped individuals manage chronic pain because they were focusing on creative tasks that acted kind of as a distraction to that pain. So it was a great coping strategy. Crafts allowed industrial accident victims to regain fine motor skills, hand-eye coordination, and upper body strength. For some, these activities also served as a stepping stone to re-entering the workforce by building confidence and a sense of capability after sustaining an injury. Arts and crafts help promote development of fine motor skills, sensory processing, and attention for children with disabilities in a fun and engaging way that helped build essential life skills and increase independence. And finally, engaging in art helped older adults living in long-term care maintain cognitive function, hand dexterity, and social engagement, all of which were seen as vital for maintaining a sense of purpose and quality of life. So the arts and crafts movement emphasized adapting activities to the individual's skill level and ensuring personal connection with the task, which also mirrors OT's customized approach to treatment. So, in summary, arts and crafts deeply influence the occupational therapy's philosophy and methods, setting the foundation for using creative hands on activities to foster well being, skill development, and personal fulfillment. Principles that still remain very central to OT practice today. So, just to recap, us occupational therapists absolutely love art. We're happy to push in, we're happy to consult with you guys. Art is a very occupation-based activity that works on fine motor skills, hand-eye coordination, sensory processing and integration, problem solving and decision making, emotional regulation and expression, focus and attention to tasks, social skills and self-advocacy, creativity and imagination, independence and self-confidence. Some common barriers the OT can help with are motor skills, so difficulty using tools and controlling movements, such as cutting, drawing, and painting. Some sensory, such as sensitivity to textures or smells that are impacting their participation. Visual perceptual issues like difficulty arranging and placing objects on targets and replicating models. Some cognitive processing, such as planning, organizing, following multiple steps. A lot of our kids struggle with regulation, so that's anxiety and frustration, difficulty with transitions, resistance to working with new materials or engaging in unfamiliar processes, and communication, so difficulty just expressing their ideas and their preferences. So now we're going to talk a little bit about modifications for some of those barriers. So if you are having a kid who is really having a hard time with motor skills, occupational therapy can provide adaptive tools like ergonomic scissors, tools with larger grasp, and stability devices. Modified materials can help them, such as stronger, stiffer paper or pre-cut shapes or dough or clay alternatives. Task adaptations, such as clamps to help stabilize if they only have one arm and they can't hold down the paper with their other. Visual guides to break down the steps or minimize the steps. Environmental modifications. We can help with seating them appropriately and the best way so they can reach all their things. And just supportive strategies. So some training for their paras or the adults that are working with them. Some sensory modifications. These are pretty, I feel like they're pretty obvious, but I'll just go through them anyway. So if you have a student who's very sensory avoiding, you're gonna want things that will help them, such as odorless supplies. You can provide them gloves to wear if they really don't want to touch the material. You can use plastic sheets. I've used that for I've put plastic sheets over the top of Play-Doh, or if we're doing finger painting, I'll put half of a plastic baggie that I've cut over it, and they can squish the paint through the bag, so they can still interact with it but not necessarily have to touch it. Going along those lines, long-handled tools so that they have a pretty good distance between them and the thing that they don't like. Having wet wipes on hands so that they can get their hands clean, as just in case they accidentally touch it or they're willing to touch it but they want it off right away. And then just a designated break area to escape whenever they're overwhelmed. Natural lighting or adjustable lamps is better than fluorescent lighting when it comes to limiting sensory input. And you should always encourage interaction with the things that they don't really want to touch, but never force it. And our students who are sensory seeking is pretty much just going to be the opposite. Um, you're going to want non-toxic supplies because they tend to be seeking in all areas. So they're going to be the ones that like to really feel things with their mouth, like your paintbrushes and tasting the paints and eating the glue and really like getting in there with all of their senses. They're gonna love like textured paints and heavily scented materials. It might help to give them some fidgets whenever they need you need to take the like touchy stuff away from them for a little while. It's just to kind of keep them busy. Some other sensory conditions or considerations rather are that you may want to provide some art shirts for messy play. I've had a lot of kids who are like very impulsive and they'll just stick like both hands full-fledged into some paint and then be like, oh, I don't like that, and just wipe it right on their shirt. Um, so just a variety of textures and tools so that, because I mean, you never know what you're going to need. Make sure that you introduce new materials and textures gradually. Providing visual schedules or videos or live demonstrations can kind of help increase predictability, and that can help reduce some anxiety. And then soft music or nature sounds, it generally creates a smoothing atmosphere and also, without too much added distraction. But just remember that all students are different, so these guidelines are very general and of course they can vary. So some modifications for vision. I mentioned this later, but a lot of like specialized equipment for vision is going to come from like a vision specialist that we have in our district. But your school OT can certainly probably get you like hooked up with that person if need be. So you want to, if you're working with a student who has like limited um, vision, or even a student who maybe you don't think that there's anything wrong with their vision or there's nothing in their IEP about there being something wrong with their vision, but they really just don't pay attention to, like, they don't visually attend to a lot. Um, Providing things like high contrast and very enlarged, providing tactile supports like raised guides and textures materials, magnifiers, light boards. They have some smart tools that will, tell you what kinds of shapes you're drawing and what color you're using, and multisensory, so lots of sensations other than vision, such as smell and sound, and just seating them closer and making sure that the lighting is appropriate for their best chance at being able to see something. Modifications for cognition. This is going to be things like simplified instructions, very step-by-step guidance, visual supports, hands-on demonstrations. Maybe they don't understand you explaining it, but they can see you doing it and they can, imitate that. Task adaptations, so just providing lots of alternative formats and giving them the extra time that they need, offering them positive reinforcement to kind of let them know, like, yes, you're doing it correctly, or you're doing what we asked, following directions, kinds of things. And just making sure that, if you're able to, then check for understanding. So just, instead of like giving it to the student and kind of walking away, just making like hanging out for a minute and making sure like they kind of seem like they know what they're doing. And then some modifications for regulation. This is going to be like all those little behavior supports. So just making sure you have very clear expectations. You can even have visual prompts or icons that can be used to remind them, such as, quiet hands or, things like that. Making sure you have a safe space for when they're starting to become overwhelmed or escalated. Sometimes that can just head that off if they have a place to go. Making sure that you establish a very consistent and predictable routine, such as like a warm up, instruction, activity, and closing. Using schedules to increase that predictability. always kind of helps with those behavior items. And then some reward systems like a token economy or a first then can kind of help give them like immediate positive reinforcement of like small accomplishments while still working towards that like whole completion. Modifications for communication. Um, Occupational therapists can definitely help with like functional communication and communication as it applies to art and creating an art piece. But I just want to mention that speech therapists are going to be your absolute experts in this field. So just basic supports is you can provide visual cues. So using actual items or icons that the students can gesture or look at or, point to or touch, so that you're not only relying on their ability to answer verbally. Encouraging communication. So if they do have AAC devices, trying to get them to, use those to, make choices or explain their ideas or things like that. And even having like little icons around that are like just quick and easy ways to communicate common wants and needs like stop, break, more, help, things like that that they can, get in hand to you or point to if they are needing that kind of communication. Right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about adaptive devices. Right, so go ahead and take a moment now to pause the PowerPoint and watch some of the videos that I sent to Denise. These are going to show you a little bit of the adaptive equipment that we have available. I do want to just apologize in advance. I prepped this whole PowerPoint and everything very last minute, so I did not have time to edit any of the videos, but hopefully they'll give you a pretty good idea of the equipment anyway. Okay, so after watching the videos, now that you have kind of an idea of some of the adaptive equipment that we have, I just want to offer you just a very few craft ideas that I've done in the past that have been gone over pretty successfully. So primarily using the pour cup, I've done watercolor art where you just like really wet the paper and then you'll drop some like liquid watercolor onto the paper, like pouring it from the pour cup, and then I'll kind of clean out the pour cup and dry it a little bit and use it to sprinkle, like pour some Epsom salt on it, and it creates a really cool effect. Some watercolors and oil, you can prepare like liquid watercolors and then just like pour different watercolors onto the paper, just like adding a very, very small amount to the pour cup at a time. And then, of course, like pour painting is just absolutely perfect for the pour cup. Bubble wrap stamping. I've made like one of those big stamps like you see in the picture there. And I've had like, I've put like paint into the pour cup and then turned the stamp upside down and had them pour the paint on there. And then I'll spread it, or if this was like a teamwork assignment, I'd have like another student spread it around with a paintbrush and then turn it around. Um, I've had the student that was like a little bit more like physically able push down on the stamps, and I've also just kind of put the stamp lightly and then moved the pour cup down to where if the student activated it and the pour cup turned, it would kind of push down on the stamp itself. And I've also tried putting like a really heavy bean bag into the pour cup and just dropping the bean bag onto the cup to like press it down. And I don't know, that was funny. I can't say it worked super great, the beanbag one, but it got it on there. All right, playing with like some hot and cold things. You can hook like a hair dryer up to the power link, and then the student can like, turn it on and melt some crayons. Though I have found that like unless you get really cheap crayons that like melt really quick, um, some students who use switches and aren't super fast about it, the crayons will like cool before they press the button again and heat them back up. So I found that this sometimes works a little bit better if you like take ice cubes and freeze paint. It's like mostly paint, a little bit of water, and then you can use the ice, like melt the ice cubes, because even then, like if they don't actually push the button, they'll at least melt a little bit um in between them activating the hair dryer. And then students who are, wanting to kind of interact and do something and have a little less patience for the hair dryer can actually just paint with the ice cubes as well. And then a couple more, I've done pull string art. Now, the way that I did this with a Switch user was actually having to take the end of the string. If you take the pour cup off and you take like the plate, um, you can actually take the whole plate that the cup is even attached to off of the pour cup, and you'll just kind of have like a peg that spins. Now, if you take the edge of the string and you tape it to that, then when it spins, it will actually wind up the string, and that's how we pulled it. Just make sure like you put a piece of paper, like you poke a piece of paper through that peg so that it kind of keeps things clean. I have also used the blender, kind of like I showed you guys in the video, to grind salt and like chalk or tempera paint together to make like a salty kind of colored salt, and then like draw a design with some glue and then have them pour it with the pour cup onto the glue. You can also hook up like a fan to the power link, and they can like turn on the fan and blow the excess into the trash can. And then the splatter art one was pretty fun, where I just took like a big container and taped some paper to the sides of the container, and then we dipped a handheld mixer into some paint and then like held it there, and they hit the switch and it just splattered all kinds of colors all against the sides of the container and got the paper. Right, so now I would love to have you guys go ahead and just practice with the adaptive equipment. Go over there and play with it and touch it, and you may have to. I didn't have a switch for everything, so you may have to like unplug the switch and plug it into something else if you want to play with everything. But certainly I encourage you, because I feel like the best way to really get to know something is to kind of play with it. So I want to thank you guys so much for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions at all about the presentation, please feel free to email me. And if you would like to get in touch with your occupational therapist for any ideas, or there's any particular equipment that you think would really benefit a student, or anything like that, feel free to reach out to your building's OTs, because every single building in Francis House School District has an OT assigned to it, and they are the ones to ask if you have I mean, they live for this stuff. So if you have any student that you're like, man, I really want them to be able to do, this activity, but I can't really figure out how I can make it to where they're able to do it, your occupational therapist will certainly work with you to figure out what kinds of equipment you need, or what kind of adaptations, or anything that you need to include that student. So um, again, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your PD day.